Okay.
So, first thing you do, keep your nails and everything on the bottom so it's all, stirred up and everything. Do you want to film? So you can So if we were going to do the mahogany, like what's in the Swan Inn, it's a wood that's really on the red side. So you'd want burnt umber, which is like a brownish red, and a touch of the rose pink, which is really red. And you can even throw in any of this. When you're, like you said, when you're wood graining, it's not a real wood, so you don't have to be meticulous and perfect with it, as long as you get the appearance of real wood. So someone like you who knows what they're talking about or knows what it would look like isn't gonna, isn't gonna catch the rust. And so you can either get a sample if you want, or go by that and try to match that, or you can just know that a mahogany is a dark, a lot of grain, not a lot of moving grain, just
Right.
there's a lot of steps over each other. So we take a little of this, and this stuff goes a long way.
What's in that? Just plain nails
Yeah.
in an empty can?
In an empty can.
Okay.
Just to keep it from settling on the bottom. This stuff goes a long way, so you don't need that much. So a little bit of that, touch of this.
That's what I'm worried about, Adam. Is
It's all practice.
but to get it exactly the same color you've done that other thing,
Well, I'm going to mix up
enough?
a batch.
Okay.
There's two colors in there. There's one color, the base color that's on there now, which is kind of pretty much this and raw sienna. And it's just a background. It's just we call it flog. It's just a flog. And then the color over that is much deeper, much more red and burnt umber.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do two different steps. So you thin it out with paint there. Just a little bit.
The color you have on that base, is that just latex, semi-gloss?
Yeah.
Okay.
The stuff that you had.
Oh, okay.
We painted those other doors with.
Mm-hmm.
That. You can kind of tell what's going to be too thick or too thin. When they move around, that obviously looks too thin, and if you had that, you can tell it's going to dry quick and you're not going to be able to do anything with it, so that would be too thick. So you gotta find your happy medium, and you'll probably, on your first piece, you'll probably adjust it, over and over, trying to get it right. And I mean, I do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's too thin, maybe too much paint thinner. So we'll add a little more of this. And like on a wood like that, you don't really have to have two different colors. You don't have to have start with a light and end up with a dark. You can use the same color. It just gives it more variety or more variation if you use two colors. So either when you do your first step, the flogging, you start out with either a light or a dark. Meaning they're both dark, but one's going to be lighter and darker than the other. So that looks better. Kind of right around medium, thick, and thin. Okay. This stuff settles real quick, so always keep agitating it and stirring it and do it. So what you would do if you were doing this piece, hopefully it will do that. You need one brush to apply it. This is the only special brush you're going to need is a flogger. The others you can use cheap throwaway brushes, it really doesn't matter, you're going to get the same effect, so you don't need expensive brushes. But they do have to be an oil-based brush, not a vinyl, a water-based brush. So these are the best, you should probably do everything with these. And this is the only special one you'll need. So if you put this stuff on.
So what's that brush you've got then?
Well, this is just a bristle, it's an oil brush. It's just for applying, but you could use one of these.
Okay, gotcha.
But this is just to spread it on. Spread it on the whole thing. And like I was saying about the cabinet, it's just looking at the wood or whatever type of wood you want to do, or even if you don't have a sample, just to make it look like wood. Just putting a lay-in color, figuring out what the background color is, and then just drawing in the grain, which is the glazes.
And you always put in 2 colors into that because it makes it look better. Is that what you meant by 2 colors?
No, you don't have to. You can go straight with this, and then you could go straight raw umber. It just depends on what type of wood, what color of wood. You don't have to go by a real type of wood. You can just, anything you do with these, as long as you have some type of a tan background and some type of a brown glaze, will appear like wood.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. This is called flogging. Start from one end, take from here to here on the brush, and just pat it, and go along and move forward as you pat it. Keep a rag and keep drying it. If you get too much on here, it'll just start splashing it and not moving it right. So, it's you can see how the material is kind of sinking into the groove, so it might be a little too thin. So we'll try it again. And you can do this, you have to do this 3 or 4 times to where the more you play with it, the quicker it dries. So if you keep doing this, if I just left it at once, eventually it's going to kind of muddle back together, not really, but if you keep doing it, eventually it'll hold that type of pattern.
Cool. So that's probably tricky when you are doing a big area. You get lines.
There's a guy here in town, this is back in the work was really good.
Yeah, there's people at the studio that like that. They don't want you to watch or ask questions.
Yeah.
And some of these older guys that have been doing it, back in those days, they really gave them time. If you don't like it, or you want to do something different, or you think it's too thin, it's hanging up, it just wipes right off with a rag.
There's a house out here in Downey that's...
Take a little paint thinner, PT paint thinner. Throw it on there. It'll wipe off. And don't worry if a little bit hangs up, it'll only add to it if anything. So we're going to make it a little thicker.
Now, why are you making it thicker?
Well, it was kind of sagging into the grooves a little bit, and it was bleeding back together a little too much.
Oh,
we wanted it to have a little more body.
So you couldn't have gotten away with just doing that flogging 3 or 4 times, and that would have worked?
Hot summer day, maybe.
You could have, but if you keep changing it and you try it thick and thin, you're going to get the feel of it better. Then when you mix them, you're going to be able to know when it's ready, and you're going to know what gives a better effect or what's easier to work with. Now, if this was standing up on its side, if it was that thin, it probably would have ran down a little bit, and then I really would have caused myself more work than what I needed to do.
That's a vinyl leather.
So, spread it all into that, put your stuff on. flogging is starting to add some grain now. And I know it sounds simple, and right now you wouldn't think it looks like wood, but even doing something like that adds to grain. It still gives it flowing grain.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do some of this and just keep moving it back and forth, these brushes are, you know, it's kind of good that they're cheap because the bristles are kind of spread apart and
Yeah.
they're rough. And
Now, if you're
so-
doing a great big piece of wood, how big of a section can you do before the paint dries, you know?
Well, we're gonna, if you have time, we're gonna go over to the Swan room and do the finish on
Oh, okay.
this thing, and I'll show you. You can also do things like pushing this will add some different shapes and different. If you push the brush, you know.
So
it'll
is that
add
about
things
the
like
right
that.
thickness?
Yeah, that's about right now. Now, if you are in a situation where you have let's say a wall right here and a wall right here.
Right.
Enter into the wall that way, and then pick it up and enter in that way. See, I mean, for movies, I mean, that passes right there. You know, 6 feet away, you really wouldn't be able to tell. You know, I mean, of course it doesn't look like real wood, but it gives the appearance of wood. Now, if you wanted to flog this, which is going to add even more, let's say there's a wall there, so you enter in this way, and then turn it around. And there you have. The main thing you're looking for is highs and lows of lights and darks.
Mm-hmm.
You want some of the background coming through, you know, like right through here we have a, you know, kind of a light spot. That makes it appear like this is actually grain and this is grain.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted, see, now right now I would call this good for the first step. I would just leave it, and then I would spray the sealer on it, and then come back and add some more to it. And when you add more, I was going to do this and seal a piece.
It doesn't have to dry to seal it?
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
How long does it take?
Well, if you only use paint thinner, it'll take maybe a couple hours. I would leave it overnight because you want it to last longer, and it'll be stronger if you if you let it dry up good. Yeah. Now, if this was on a, see, when you get it thicker and it's standing up on the surface, it'll stick. You know, and I don't know if you want to play with it, or in this little crack or the groove, you might see some running down. You can go over it again. And this is the same thing. If this was a baseboard, you just hold it the same way.
That's cool.
Keep
Okay.
going this way until it either doesn't run down. You can take your little brush, draw some lines in there, fading down. Over here. Do that. Another good technique is you can use the same brush and real softly drag this over it. And it kind of just muds everything together.
Blends it all in, huh?
If you want to hit it again, you know, you still have, you can tell it is drying and I am losing time, but sometimes that's good. Sometimes, you know, you just keep playing with it until you think, okay, don't touch it. You know, you can do things like, well, and you can all do this in one step. If you didn't want to do process after process or step after step, you can try all this in one step. Then you start getting what you think would be grain going through there.
Hmm. Cool.
So it's all just a matter of practicing. All you need to do is get a lay-in color that would look like wood, and make glazes that would make it look like wood. And then it's just painting. It's just drawing in the grain or doing whatever. take things like a cork, and you can put it on there and make a circle, or you can dip it in a dark color and make a circle, and that'll make a knot.
Mhm.
Then you know, if you had a knot right there or something, and you draw your crane around it. You know, continue.
Very good.
So you know, from way back there,
Yeah.
you know. Now if you just left this and sealed it, then when you do your overglaze, what you want to do with your overglaze over this glaze is you make it just a hair thinner than you would this batch, because you're not going to do any flogging. All you're going to do is pretty much just brush it on, move it around, and what I do is like on a piece like this, take a rag and just kind of highlight some spots. Like if wood's been refinished, you know, of course the stain gets held up in the grooves more. So if you were overglazing this, just wipe a little bit off the tips.
So you put it on and then just wipe it off.
Yeah, just wipe it off, leave some of it on.
Okay.
And I'll show you this when we go to steel to be able to see it. And then, you know, you just keep smoothing down. You want to take your other brush and make the lines in it and keep doing that. If there was a wall here, you know, you make sure a little bit kind of hangs up more in the corners, because, you know, the glaze can come together and things like that. So that's kind of basic graining 101. If you don't like it, wipe it off. Okay, now we're going to grain. Obviously, if this was this was just molding on a cabinet, we'll do it like that. Obviously, this wood's going to go this way, this wood's going to go this way.
That's nice, perfect that way.
You don't have to tape it off or anything, you just brush it that way.
You could. If you're doing a door, sometimes we'll do, you know, a door standing up. And you can put tape around the inlays. So you would grain the inlay first, tape it off, then grain this panel going up. And, you know, on doors, the two sides go all the way up, and then the middle piece comes to those, you know, like that. So you would do either the piece on top, the inlays, there's usually a piece going across here, you do the piece going across here, then you do the piece going across the bottom, and then you do the two sides going all the way up. And if you do it, you know, in sections like that, not try to do the whole door at once, it's really simple.
That's how you were going to do the doors down there, in sections.
Yeah.
And oak is different tools than that?
No. Well, number one, you would need the check roller for oak, because it has those checks going through it, and that really helps with the appearance of the wood. And with oak, if I was going to do a piece of oak like this, it's just more open grain. It's not so. If it was going to be a piece of oak, you put all this on, and see the glaze wouldn't be quite this red. We would use more raw umber and a little bit of burn umber rather than a lot of burn umber. You know what I mean? It's more on the brown-green side. So if it was oak and it was check roll, wipe most of this off. So there's a lot of land showing through. There's a lot of the background color showing through. And then you would just, not even gonna look really good. You draw in really bold. this type of brush to where it's thin, but not that wide,
Mhm.
you know.
Is that nylon or bristle?
Well, this one's nylon. You can use nylon, but you have to clean it out with the same substance you use. So down there, and you can have a piece just start in the middle there, make a circle, and then pick it up. So oak is pretty difficult because it shows a lot of grain, so you really have to be pretty good on drawing your grain. That's why the mahoganies and maples and deep woods like that are easier, because you can pretty much just do simple steps over and over, and the more you build on it, the more real it's going to look.
So you don't flog that, you do it with the roller and then just brush on your...
Yeah, you could. You can do anything you want. See, that's the thing. It doesn't have to be...
Just have to practice
Yeah,
and
you just
experiment.
just mess around. Whatever you think looks good or looks like a real piece of wood. There aren't too many people who are going to judge it and realize, no, oak doesn't have that type of grain, or oak wouldn't go in that direction, or, you know, there's going to be rare occasions where...
Depends on how it's sawed, too. You know.
Oh, yeah, how do, like our bedroom stuff that's cut on a different way? How'd they do
Well,
that?
like the horn, it can be ribbon grain and have streaks all the way down, and it's when it's flanked together. You know, but that would be a lot of work.
Well, if you're going to do something like that, why not just buy the real thing?
Yeah, right.
Really?
This is just...
Yeah, this is just...
This is just for molding, for the little dresser thing that, you know, since I was here, we can make that look good. But, you know, honestly, if you were going to tackle a really nice hutch or dresser, I wouldn't recommend doing this. I'd recommend spending the extra money and buying the real thing. You know, this is fake.
That's what they used to do, though, some of the old boys.
Well, that's what we still do sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for her situation... So you still have some of the grain, but now you've added a little different life by flogging it.
Well,
That looks like oak.
It makes it look more real. You need the little streaks in it, like you said.
So maybe you could get away without that little flogger
you
or the
could.
roller thing.
You
You
could,
could
But
just had a
it really
small...
adds to it.
Yeah.
You know, and then just softly drag a softener over it, and it'll kind of muddle together. And then if you were going to do this, you know, and then I would seal this, and then I would put an overglaze over it. And all the overglaze is brushing it on and wiping most of it off.
What color would you do? Depends on the wood, or?
I would just darken that up a little bit. Use the same glaze, just throw whatever you were using, throw a little more in there.
Okay.
And make it a little darker. But no, I mean, you can, you know, if you practice this enough, yeah, you know, you can take a piece of tape and do your section, and then you seal it. And then you take the piece of tape over that, and it will look like they're butted together. And then when your grain comes together, you know, this grain will be going this way, you know, and then all of a sudden it'll stop. And then this grain will pick up, you know, and stop right there. And it'll make it look like that is the seam. You can do that, but there's really no need for what you're doing.
No, it wouldn't be.
But yeah, there's, I mean, you can, you know, when you do burl wood, you've seen burl wood just goes in all different directions, and there's huge knots, and there's little knots, and it's just going everywhere. And that takes days, weeks. You know, you really, you know, if you really get into it, I would have given it more drawing grain instead of just a couple steps of flowing continuous grain. I'm just saying you can get away just by spreading this on, flogging it, maybe drawing in a couple lines, and then the glaze after that, you know, brushing it on, giving it a little bit of grain, but then cleaning some of it off so there's some highlights showing through, some highs and lows, some lights and darks showing through, and then it just gives you the appearance that it's a nice wood. You know, if you're gonna try to figure out what type of wood it is, then you should probably use real wood.
Okay.
Or, you know, if you're gonna spend that much money, I'm just saying you can
Just
do
make
these
it look
things and get away with it, or with molding doors, things like that, without, you know, especially if you're doing it yourself.
Okay.
Same thing. If you find a piece of marble that you want to match. Like if we want to match this piece of marble, do you want to do this on that one?
Okay.
And then just practicing it and trying it. Okay. Well, let's just. Well, that's gonna have green. Okay. So if you had this and you want to get a piece of marble to look something like this, you can obviously see there's a lot of different color greens and a little bit of black and some white. So the background for this, I would say, would be white. You paint it all, paint the whole thing white first, or if you wanted to, you know what you could do too is choose an overall green for this and lay it in with that color, and that'll get you even closer than with white. So, but if we painted this one white and we were going to do this, what we want to do is make up maybe two different color greens. You know, a light green, and then more of a darker brownish, yellowish green, and then a black. Okay, so medium green and raw sienna. And that green is kind of on the grayish, dirty green, so obviously that's way too loud, so we can, it's kind of on the yellow side too, and this is a kind of a dirty yellow, so we drop a little of that in there, maybe a little white to get it lighter. The same thing, always thin it with paint thinner. Marbleizing, you're going to want a spritz bottle with kerosene and a spritz bottle with naphtha. This is naphtha right here. And they sell this in the paint stores. So those are the three chemicals you're going to need. And you're going to need them all in spritz bottles. So kind of mix this up. Get the color we're looking for. That's not it. When you're marbleizing, you can get a color that's going to be close enough because you're going to be throwing a lot of black in here, so it's going to kind of mix and make its own colors as you go. So you don't have to find 6 different colors and make them all, because those are all going to make other colors anyway.
Okay. So usually about 3 colors does it pretty good.
Depending on what kind too. Like that black table, that was just straight green out of the can and straight white. And if it's over a black background, you know, the thicker it is over the black, it'll be darker green. The thinner it is over the black, it'll be lighter green. You know,
okay,
so if you spread a bunch on and you spritz it with the naphtha and it starts to move around, then you're going to have different shades of green just because it's over a black background. Same thing with white, you know.
And your gold stuff, that granite, what gold did you use on that?
That's a whole nother question.
Okay.
So you can take a little like that. size surface to marbleize. So what you want to do is use your kerosene, because that's going to slow it down. It's the same thing, they're the same glaze. So what I would do is split it off. It might not seem like, that piece looks like a real piece of oak, or this will look like a real, I don't even know how to do it half as good as some of these, like my dad and other people. They're just, it all depends on how much you do it, you practice,
How much time you wanna take.
how much time you want to spend on each piece. You can spend weeks, months, or a day, and you'll either get, a really good piece or a good piece that's good enough.
Right.
On a piece like this, we'll just spritz it with kerosene. And the more kerosene you use, the longer it'll take to dry. So if you drench this with kerosene, it'll take like 2 days to dry, so you really don't want that. You just want to slow it down so you can play with it. So just kind of spritz it with that. And the kerosene you're going to need. So what I would do to get something like that piece over there is spread the whole, get the green, since that's your strongest color, over the whole thing. Just spreading it everywhere. First thing you think when you're doing this is how to lose the brush strokes, because obviously there's brush strokes going everywhere. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. And the kerosene will keep this wet so you can play with it for quite a while. And when you feel it sticking up and you try to do something and you try to get rid of a brush stroke and it stays there, just spritz it with kerosene again. It'll kind of reactivate it. So the first thing you could do, just to get it to move, is take the naphtha and just get, I don't know, an idea or something. And that'll start breaking it up a little bit. You can take a rag and do different shapes with a rag. And that'll start getting rid of the brush lines and things. Remember, every time you hit it with a rag, you're lifting up part of the kerosene, so it's gonna, where you touch it with a rag is gonna dry a little faster than this puddle over here. So every now and then you might want to hit it with the kerosene again to slow it down. Some people do things like just take rolled up paper instead of a rag. And that gives you real harsh angles and things like that. You can do some of that in there.
Come and film this.
So like on a marble like that, or a piece of granite like that, it seems very speckly. So you don't, some marble you see, like this, it's kind of directional. You can see marble kind of going through it, or different directions, or, the more kind of active it is to where there's no pattern, the easier it is for you to do. If you find a piece of marble that one part is real white with red veins going through it, and then it changes into a, a black piece, and those are really difficult. So then you might want to take this, You see, just kind of get this stuff going everywhere. Little specks, big specks. If you dip it and just drop it on, you're gonna have huge specks. If you get it wet, get most of it off there. And just start flicking it. You can even get it going directional now. If you keep flicking at this angle, it'll appear that it goes that way. Take the naphtha again if you wanna. Again, if you with these things, if you squeeze a little, big drops are gonna come out and they're gonna make huge circles. Or you can just spritz it. And it's just gonna do that, and then you're gonna lose a lot of it. So you just kind of wanna trigger it a little bit, play with it a little bit. Another thing I like to do is take the same color or the same brush, get it most of the color out, and squirt it on the brush, and then fling the brush at it. So not only are you throwing color in there, but you're throwing this stuff too. So the color will help move it around. Take the black, and you could also have white, a different kind of a green yellow, or you can have lots of different colors and lots of different spatters. You can do anything. You can, start finding a pattern of the black and get something going through here, and just kind of make it up as you go along. If you want veins, or if you want something running through it, or anything. You see what it looks like now. What's hard to do is know when to quit, when to keep going, or what to add. It's just going to be practice and playing with it, because what it looks like now is nothing what it'll be finished. Because if you keep doing this, it'll just keep changing and changing, and getting better or getting worse. And if you, stop now, and then you put a coat of sealer on it, and then you take maybe some white glaze, that just straight flake white, and brush it over the whole thing and make it spread, then you're going to have like white and green going over and under each other. So it's.
Is that what you did in the Alibaba room, with the white, to make the white do that?
Yeah, I did the whole thing in the oranges and reds, and then the last thing was just brush white up the whole thing, and then just start spritz it a little bit, put a little more white, splash a little more white, spritz a little bit, and then that white looks like, it's just, they're two.
But you lacquered it in between?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can take this again.
Okay, so the naphtha makes it separate.
Yeah, the naphtha makes it.
And what's the other one? The kerosene slows it down, and then what's the other one you have?
Well, the other one is paint thinner. You don't really need that all the time. It's just if you want to, let's say you want to get it wet again, or be able to move it again without slowing it down, without using the... See, the problem with using kerosene is that, let's say you get something you like, and you want it to stay that way. With kerosene, it's going to keep moving and keep moving together. It'll slide off the edges, or if there's a little rut, it'll all flow into the rut. So kerosene slows it down, but if you use too much, it could work against you too. So that way, if you wanted to get this wet again, but not have it dry slower, you spritz paint thinner on it, and that kind of reactivates everything, and you can move it again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh,
Charger?
no. I told you I'm not.
if you want to lose some of these big white spots, take a brush and start dabbing it around. Well, the good thing with marble, especially if you're not trying to actually match a piece of marble, you're just kind of making it up as you go along. You can keep messing with it and keep doing stuff. But you know, it's most of the time it's good, even if you're not trying to match a piece of marble, to have something what you're going by near you, because it
Mhm.
gives you an idea. If you see a little more black going through, then you'll add a little more black. Or if you see something going through, it helps. Even though if you're not going to match it perfectly or whatever, it helps just to give you more ideas of what to do. Because sometimes you'll get to here and think, well, it looks like black. What are you going to do with it? You know. So take this if you want some white crack in it or something.
You go and do all this at the same time, or do you go and let it set and try some more and not set?
Yeah, as far as steps, I would never do one in one step, unless it's like the black piece, the black
Mhm.
table, you know, that's mostly black. So if you put the green over it, get it to move and flow through it, and then add the little bit of the white, the drawing the white line, spritz it once or twice, that's pretty much done. But when you have one with multiple colors and it's real active, or you want it to look real deep, you know, you would do this, whatever this is going to come out, you know. You keep playing with this and playing with this until you think, okay, it's a good base or whatever. Seal it with that Sherlac stuff that you have that vinyl sealer, lacquer sealer. And then just think what would help, you know, if you overglaze it with, like if you wouldn't, but if you just left this like this, and then you overglaze it with black, just straight black, and then spritz that. Some of the black will move, so you'll see some of this showing through, and then you'll see more of the black stain, and you know, then it just gives you layer on top of layer, it gives it more depth, and makes it just have more life. And if you wanted to, you can seal that, and put something over that, and then it just adds
But
to
everything
it.
you're doing now is the way you normally do it. You're not,
Well, I'm kind of rushing it.
right, I
I
mean,
mean, I would play with, you know, if I was doing this for you right now, I'd probably play with this for a couple hours. You know, and mess around with it and, you know, get it to do different things or have.
so you're just getting the base right now, basically.
Yeah, yeah. That's another thing. If you do it, if you don't try to do the whole thing in one, you're going to have a better result no matter what. You know, if you just did one coat of green and get it to move and then seal it, and another coat of green, a different color green, then you're going to have the two, you know, on top of each other. So yeah, I would always do some type of base, and then always do some type of overglaze. And then if you wanted to add more to that, then that's all, you know, whatever you want to do. But sometimes, I mean, you can have a section that's doing something like this, and then something that's just, you know, different like this, you know. A little vein going through there where it's not broken up like this. You see, if you use too much kerosene, like I kind of did, you know, it'll just keep moving back together, and you just keep having to mess with it. But if you don't use any at all, you know, on a surface like this, you know, part of it might dry up while you're doing something over here. You can just keep messing with it, bringing colors together or breaking colors apart. Everybody's here. All right. The naphtha. any paste shop, or, well, most of them around here have that. And then, you know, what would be good for this if you threw some white in there and then threw some more black and just, you know, especially if you do it in steps. If you try to get everything in once, it's just gonna be too much, you know. So that's why I do it in different steps.
Different steps, you mean seal it in between?
Yeah, seal it in between.
Okay.
But I mean, this obviously this is ugly, but I mean, you could see where it could go. You know, kept playing with it or kept giving it different things, and the more you play with it, the more you do things to it, the better it gets. You know, if you wanted to, you could take anything, an eraser or a pencil or anything, and start putting in some lines and kind of follow a natural, whatever it's doing, kind of follow it. And that's what really helps give, you know, fake marble a good marble effect, is if you give it lines and start getting things going through it. You see, some of that might disappear, but it just helps your eye.
Mhm.
You know, it just helps the image of it.
So over there on that sign, did you draw that in with, how did you do those little lines?
The white ones I did with an eraser. And if you do a white background, it's going to pick up the white on the back. And when you're doing little lines like this, it's better to wait till it's dry, or more dry than it is now, because it kind of just bleeds back together.
Mhm.
But even now it helps, you know, it does give it, you know, some type of life. And if you had a white or something, you can actually use the pencil and it'll draw a little black line in there.
So that's what you did on the
Yeah.
windowsill, was just a pencil in the Alibaba room?
Yeah. I'll start doing that, you know, something like that would look really good and hangs up, and that seems breaking okay. Yeah.
Hey, Larry? It's off now, but it kind of was flipping back and forth. Did I bump something?
They have I think Voyager took pictures of an actual comet that was just like half the size of the moon when it hit the surface of Uranus, and they photographed the whole thing. It was like the most amazing thing anybody's ever seen on a, you know, in television or space. I haven't ever heard of it. It was about 9 months ago or something like that. And they say the explosion was 500, I want to say million times of an atomic bomb, and it would have blown up the whole Earth. It was big enough just to, boom, hit the whole Earth and blow up. And they say just the explosion alone, the little light they saw that went like that, was bigger than the Earth. That's a big rock.
Yeah, it is. Wow. I mean, they've been amazed why nothing's hit us yet.
Yeah. Well, that one that hit Siberia, like in the 1880s or something like that,
Mhm.
and that flattened like 800 square miles. Just the shock wave from the hitting the ground. These are good things too. You get that?
Part of the technique.
I'm terrible. So anyway, when you're doing this, just keep moving it, moving it, moving it, and just keep brushing, graining, graining. Waiting for it to dry up a little bit, 'cause if you just leave it like that, it's just gonna eventually kind of sag and look like droopy grain. You don't want droopy grain. So these teeth, like this piece, is gonna go up and down this way. This one you can use hand with, but that should go up and down this way. This is just gonna fit right into everything else. Keep brushing it till it dries.
What is that you've got there? What's in there?
What? That's the same stuff we were using on the sample.
Hmm.
Those stuff.
Is it thicker or thinner or?
Well, it's a little too thin right now because I'm having to work with it too much. And if it was a little thicker, the grain would be a little bolder. But it's going to be okay because after we seal this, if I don't have time, you're going to come back and either take this same here or take a little bit of that rose pink and get this little, a little more, red, get a little more of that rose pink in there. And then you're going to overglaze the whole thing. And you brush it on, like take one section at a time, this whole section, and brush it on the whole thing. And you're going to keep playing with a little bit with it. And then you're going to take a rag and just pretty much wipe it off of the face, but leave it hanging up, in the corner so it looks like it was restained and refinished and restained. That'll give it an older look. So, and that'll...
You wipe it off the rag or a brush?
Well, do a little bit with a brush, then take, part of a rag, and, if it was right here, if this was it, this was already done to this, you just kind of, so it kind of gives it a few lines, but kind of takes a little bit off, and it leaves it hanging up in the corners a little bit. Just take wipe and there. And then you can take a softener brush or something. Really lightly soften it. Just kind of blend it out. If you get something that, like right there, looks like a little bit of too much of a brush stroke, just take a little more off. And see, it'll be much darker than that because I'm going to do this step, and the overglaze you're going to do is just going to kind of bring it all together. You'll see when you do it. You'll figure it out.
And that's just with that pink color?
Rose pink.
Yeah. Just straight with paint thinner? No other brown or anything in it?
Well, no, what you can do is you can just add it to this.
Oh, okay.
When you go along, you start out, you can tell this glaze was a little lighter than this glaze.
Mm-hmm.
So I just add a little more, make it a little thicker with the burn umber or some type of brown. And then the final glaze will be even a little deeper than that. You just want to go deeper every time, and it just gives it more depth.
You usually take like 3 times. You do it once, twice, third time.
Yeah.
Depending on how many.
To get it like that, yeah, about 3. You can do it in 1 or 2, but it just the more you do, the more realistic it'll become.
Now if somebody comes along and scratches it,
Right now,
no, after it's all done, like in a year, big gouge in it.
well, I would do you do the same thing. You make up a glaze, but almost straight material, no paint thinner.
Okay.
And you take a small brush and just kind of draw it back in. And you're going to be able to see it, but it'll kind of almost give it character. It'll almost be like the real thing. There's some kind of nature or something gets light like that. You can just take the glaze and redraw it in there.
Okay.
And then just brush a little bit of the sealer, the same sealer we're going to use to glaze that agri glaze stuff. So since this is drying slow, you got the camera on, just like two at the same time. Yeah. You know how, young guns, you always hear these, I don't know, speeches or lectures or TV programs or idiots, letting that go. She had that thing in my face all morning long.
Oh, did you go get some more film?
No, it just went back on, so maybe, I don't know why it went off.